What happens when a split-second assumption destroys 6 months of federal work? Sometimes the most dangerous weapon isn't a gun. It's a badge wielded by someone who's already made up their mind. The air inside Morrison's Market had that late afternoon heaviness, warm air clinging to cold tile floors, people trying to get in and out before dinner. Officer Marcus Webb wasn't shopping. He was there for a protein bar and maybe a six-pack before heading home. Nothing official. No calls came in. He was still in uniform, though, and in his head that meant always being on duty. As he moved past the bakery, something caught his attention. A man stood near the dairy case. Tall, early 40s maybe, athletic build, dark windbreaker zipped halfway up, phone in hand. He wasn't pushing a cart. He wasn't picking anything up. He was just watching. His eyes tracked a few shoppers. Nothing dramatic, just a glance here and there. Then he made brief eye contact with Webb, a flicker, then turned back to the yogurt. That was all Webb needed. He angled his walk straight toward the man, skipping any sense of casual approach. Chest puffed slightly, steps just loud enough. He stopped a little too close, just beside the butter. "You with store security?" Webb asked, his tone already implying suspicion. The man looked up slowly, calm, not irritated, not smug, just assessing. "No," he replied evenly. Webb didn't like that. Too short. Too sure of himself. "You've been watching people a little too long to just be here shopping. You planning to pay for anything?" The man raised an eyebrow, not in defiance, more like confusion. Then he slipped his phone into his back pocket. "Sir, I'm in the middle of something," he said, voice quiet. "You're interfering." "Interfering with what?" Webb fired back. "You're not law enforcement. I don't see a badge. You're not store staff, and I don't like being lied to." Webb wasn't yelling, but his voice had that sharpness that cuts through a grocery store. A few heads turned. The woman stacking apples near the entrance slowed her movements. A kid in line for the deli whispered to his mom. A manager behind the customer service counter took a step forward, but didn't act. The man kept his hands visible, calm, still too calm, Webb thought. "My name is Marcus Thompson," the man said. "Special Agent, FBI. Badge is in my back pocket. I'm not here to talk to you." Webb didn't blink. He hated being told he was wrong, especially this directly. "Let me see the badge," he said, standing even taller now, hand drifting toward his own belt. Thompson moved slowly, no sudden gestures. He pulled out the badge, flipped it open. Webb barely looked at the ID inside before waving it off. "Anybody can carry a fake badge," Webb said. "You think you're the first guy who tried that?" Thompson locked eyes with him now. Still no anger, but the silence got heavier. "You need to back up," Thompson said. "You're interfering with a federal surveillance operation. You're about to blow a case we've been building for 6 months. Webb scoffed. "Then you should have let someone know. Local law enforcement was going to see a guy lurking around the yogurt aisle looking suspicious." "I don't owe you notification," Thompson replied. "This is federal jurisdiction. Now step back." Webb felt it. Eyes on him. A woman across the aisle held her phone angled slightly toward them, recording. Another shopper whispered to someone behind the produce rack. People weren't walking by anymore. They were slowing down, watching, judging. And then, like clockwork, Webb doubled down. "If you don't have something with a signature or someone I can call, I'm detaining you right here." Thompson didn't move. He didn't blink. He didn't touch his badge again. "You really want to go that route?" he asked. Webb didn't answer. He just stood there, jaw tight, energy buzzing. But just as it looked like things might tip over, someone else entered the aisle. Someone Webb hadn't seen coming. She was shorter than Thompson, sharp-eyed, hair pulled into a tight twist, dressed in a slate-gray sweater and dark jeans that didn't draw attention. But her presence hit like a bucket of cold water. Agent Sarah Mitchell didn't say a word right away. She simply stepped between Webb and Thompson with the ease of someone used to high-stakes environments. Webb blinked. She hadn't been there a second ago. Mitchell's tone was quiet but surgical. "Officer, you're interfering with a federal operation. You need to take a step back." Webb held his ground. "And you are?" She opened her badge folder and held it at chest level. "Special Agent Mitchell. I'm Thompson's partner. You've compromised surveillance." He let out a short laugh that didn't feel natural. "Two people claiming to be FBI, no coordination with local PD, no visible suspect. You expect me to believe you're both just grocery shopping for justice?" Mitchell's eyes didn't leave him. "No, officer. We expect you to exercise basic protocol and professionalism." Webb ignored the sting. He pointed at Thompson. He was just standing there watching folks. No cart, no list. Looked like he was casing the place. "You profile all men buying yogurt?" Mitchell shot back. That landed. A teenager filming from behind a soda display snorted. Webb turned slightly, noticing the quiet wall of phones now raised in his direction. The people weren't shouting, but they were recording. That felt worse. Thompson kept still. "We're tracking someone who's been using stolen benefits to launder EBT funds across state lines. She was supposed to meet a contact here. Now she's probably long gone." Webb narrowed his eyes. And you didn't think to notify local authorities? We don't telegraph live surveillance, Mitchell replied. It's called containment, until you showed up with your mouth and your badge swinging. That one caught him square. He looked around, eyes darting, noticing more shoppers frozen mid-errand, a dad holding a baby, pack of diapers, a cashier leaning on a register. It wasn't chaos, it was worse. Tension. Heavy, real, silent tension. I was doing my job, Webb said defensively. No, you weren't, Thompson finally spoke again. You were acting on your own judgment. Not a call, not a report, just a hunch. Webb's lip twitched. I had a right to question. No one's saying you couldn't ask a question, Mitchell cut in. It's how you did it. You went in looking for a problem. Webb felt it now, heat crawling up his neck. He wasn't used to being corrected in public, especially not by someone with command in her voice. But there was something else under the surface. A flicker of recognition that maybe, just maybe, he'd misjudged this entire thing. Even if you are FBI, Webb said, reaching for something to hold on to, this still isn't how it's done. Mitchell took a breath. We're not going to debate tactics with someone who interrupted a federal tale without cause. Behind them, a store manager, mid-50s, red polo shirt, thinning hair, walked up cautiously. Everything all right here? He asked, eyes bouncing between uniforms and badges. We're good, Thompson said calmly. No need for you to get involved further. Webb turned to the manager. They say they're FBI. You vouch for that? The manager raised his palms slightly. I don't know who anyone is, but I know she came in before you. I saw her near the pharmacy, texting and walking like she belonged. He was here earlier. No trouble. Didn't buy anything, but didn't cause any. That didn't help Webb feel better. He shifted on his heels. So where's this suspect of yours? He asked, trying to regain control. Mitchell turned slightly, scanning the crowd. Gone, thanks to you. Webb wanted to say more, wanted to challenge that, but the silence beat him to it. From behind, someone muttered, he just couldn't stand seeing a confident brother standing still. Webb spun around, trying to identify the voice, but nobody claimed it. The crowd had changed. What had started as subtle glances was now quiet judgment. Phones pointed down, not because people were done recording, but because the story had already been told. He turned back to Thompson and Mitchell, his jaw locked. I want names. Full names. I'll file a report. You're welcome to, Thompson replied, expression still unreadable. We'll be doing the same. But even as Webb started to back away, reality was already crashing through. Their suspect was gone, and he was the reason why. Webb stepped back, but not far, just enough to make it look like he was giving space while still hovering. His pride had taken a hit, and instead of letting it settle, he clung to authority like a safety rope. Let's be real for a second, he said. You two show up in street clothes, no heads up to local law enforcement, and now you want to act like I'm the problem? That's a joke. Mitchell turned toward Thompson, but it was Thompson who answered. You made yourself the problem the second you assumed instead of asked. You didn't approach with curiosity. You walked in like you were ready for a takedown. Webb rolled his eyes. Oh, please. You think this is about you personally? Thompson didn't flinch. No, I think it's about the way you operate. You saw a guy you didn't like the look of, and you moved in. No crime, no complaint, just your own suspicion. You act like that's not part of the job, Webb snapped. Mitchell crossed her arms. Not when it's built on ego and assumptions. That's not policing, that's interference. The nearby shoppers were still lingering, pretending to shop, but clearly tuned in. A young woman by the cheese samples was whispering to a guy in sweats, and neither of them moved an inch toward the exit. The tension had shifted now. It was embarrassment, Webb specifically, hanging in the air. Trying to salvage his footing, Webb took out his notepad. Name again, he said, looking at Thompson. Special Agent Marcus Thompson, out of the Charlotte field office. You want my supervisor's name too? Webb scribbled, then looked up. And you? He asked Mitchell, not looking up. Special Agent Sarah Mitchell, same field office. You might want to spell it right when you write your report. Webb muttered something under his breath as he wrote, then finally looked up. I've seen feds work before. You don't blend in, you don't coordinate, and now you're telling me I tanked your big operation. So what now? You gonna go cry to the Bureau? Thompson didn't blink. What happens next depends on your department, your conduct, your record. But trust me, it's not going away. Webb straightened up. You threatening me now? No, Mitchell said quickly. But you made choices in front of a room full of witnesses. Phones don't lie. Even if some of them delete the footage, someone won't. Webb's face twitched. I was trying to prevent a crime. And in doing so, Thompson replied, you helped one walk out the door. Mitchell stepped forward, lowering her voice. We've been tracking Lisa Rodriguez across 3 states. She's been fronting a fake produce supplier to launder EBT funds. Hundreds of thousands in fraudulent benefits turned into clean cash. She's been slippery. Today we had her. We were 5 minutes from contact. Webb opened his mouth to speak, then stopped. His hand fell from his belt. His eyes flicked toward the entrance. The red polo store manager had stepped back. A security guard leaned against a pillar, watching everything unfold but clearly unwilling to intervene. "We kept things quiet because that's how these cases work," Thompson said. "When you walk up loud, escalate, and make assumptions, you don't just embarrass yourself, you damage real investigations, people's livelihoods, federal resources." Webb tried to find something, some angle that would shift the tone. "You could have just shown the badge when I asked." "I did," Thompson replied. "You hesitated. I moved slowly for safety. You're a cop. You know why." Webb didn't respond to that. The silence stretched again. Mitchell stepped back beside Thompson. "You're going to have to write this up. We will too. But I suggest you leave out the part where you tried to detain a federal agent mid-surveillance based on your gut." From the back of the store, a young man holding a box of cereal muttered, "Bro got schooled right in front of the cheese." Someone else laughed, soft but enough to cut through the silence. Webb's ears burned. His posture sank a little, though he tried to mask it. "I'm done here," he said stiffly, closing his notebook and turning on his heel. But as he walked off toward the automatic doors, Thompson's next words followed him, and they weren't for Webb. They were for the case that had just slipped through their fingers. Thompson exhaled through his nose, slow and steady, but his jaw clenched. Mitchell watched Webb walk toward the exit, shoulders rigid, hands twitching like he was still fighting to save face. But the damage had been done. "He's lucky we kept our voices down," Thompson muttered. "Could have turned into a full-blown incident if we didn't keep it measured." Mitchell scanned the store again. Most people had gone back to shopping, but the atmosphere was different now. That low-level hum of retail noise had shifted into something quieter, more careful. Nobody made eye contact. They all knew something had gone sideways, even if they didn't know the full story. Mitchell tapped her earpiece, her voice low. "Control, this is Delta 6. Surveillance was compromised. Subject likely exited during local interference." A brief pause. "Copy, Delta 6. Confirming exit through north entrance 10 minutes ago. Visual lost at parking lot." Mitchell swore under her breath. Thompson crossed his arms. "Lisa's smart. She knew we were watching, just not from where. But once she saw the uniform going hard, she'd bolt." They stood still for a moment, letting the weight of it settle. Months of setup, paperwork, sting prep, contacts in 3 cities. Lisa Rodriguez had finally agreed to a face-to-face drop. Everything had lined up, until a rookie mistake by someone who wasn't even part of the operation dismantled it in 30 seconds. Thompson turned to Mitchell. "I want a call with Captain Brooks today. I'm not letting this get swept under a rug." "She's expecting it," Mitchell replied. "Already left a voice note. Told her we'd report on scene breakdown and timeline." Thompson nodded, jaw tight. "Did the store cameras catch her?" "I'm sure they did. Doesn't help much if she's already out of the lot with burner plates." Thompson's hands curled into fists, then relaxed again. From the other side of the store, a young woman with a badge on her lanyard approached. Not law enforcement, store security. Excuse me, agents?" Mitchell turned. "Yes? I'm Dana, assistant security lead. I've been watching the footage from earlier. Your suspect was at Register 9, paid cash, left with a green bag. Maybe produce." She ducked when the officer came into frame. Thompson stepped closer. "You have the footage? I pulled a copy already," Dana said, holding up a small USB drive. Her hand was shaking slightly. "Thank you," Mitchell said, taking it. "Send your manager our contact at the Charlotte field office. We'll follow up." Dana nodded quickly and backed away. As she left, Mitchell gave Thompson a look. "She's sharp. She paid attention. That alone puts her above Webb." Thompson paced a short distance, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "You good?" Mitchell asked. "No," he said, "but I will be." She didn't press further. "I was watching the register line the whole time," Thompson said. "I had eyes on Lisa. She wasn't twitchy. She wasn't clocking me. Not until he walked up on you like he owned the place." Thompson shook his head slowly. "We spend all this time trying to move quiet, blend in, do it by the book, and then a guy with a badge and a chip on his shoulder barrels through like it's a traffic stop." "You didn't lose it," Mitchell reminded him. "You didn't escalate. I wanted to. I know. But you didn't. That's what matters." Thompson exhaled again. She was right there. Mitchell didn't respond. She didn't need to. It wasn't the first time they'd watched something fall apart at the last second, but this one stung more. This one wasn't bad intel or a tip that went cold. This was someone else's mistake interfering with their hard work. "We need to regroup," Thompson finally said. Mitchell agreed. "Let's head to the car. Debrief while it's fresh. We'll patch Brooks in from there." They began walking slowly toward the exit, passing the cooler section where this all began. Thompson's eyes drifted toward the butter shelf, the spot where Webb first blocked him. "I could see it in his face," he murmured. He didn't come over to ask anything. He came to confirm what he already believed. Mitchell didn't answer that either. What could she say? It was true. But as they pushed through the sliding doors and stepped into the fading daylight, the guilt of a missed call wasn't the only thing hanging between them. There was the question neither wanted to say out loud. Would this happen again the next time they tried to do their jobs quietly? The next morning, a video surfaced online. It was only 28 seconds long, shot vertically with shaky hands and poor audio, but it didn't need to be cinematic. It told the story loud enough. In the clip, Officer Marcus Webb stands face-to-face with Special Agent Marcus Thompson, their voices measured but tense. Thompson doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't curse. He doesn't flinch. He simply stands still and speaks calmly while a uniformed officer challenges his authority in the middle of a grocery store aisle near the butter and eggs. The caption read, "This man taught a cop more with silence than some folks do with a badge." By noon, the clip had crossed 60,000 views. The comments came in fast. "Why is it always like this? He's lucky it didn't turn deadly. The brother kept his cool. That's strength. We need to talk about this type of behavior more often." In a quiet office downtown, Captain Rodriguez sat in front of the clip on repeat, face flat, expression unreadable. He'd already read Webb's report. He'd already reviewed the logs. And now, watching this fragment of real-time humiliation shared across the internet, he understood exactly what it meant. Not just bad optics, not just a mistake. A rupture. He made a call to internal affairs by 12:14 p.m. Across the city, Thompson sat at his desk sipping lukewarm coffee while writing his formal statement. His screen was open to a photo still of Lisa Rodriguez's burner ping. He was staring at it, but his thoughts were elsewhere. Mitchell stepped into the office. "Clip's making the rounds," she said, setting a flash drive on his desk. "Local news picked it up. You're a meme now." Thompson didn't smile. "You good?" she asked. "Yeah," he said. "I just wish it hadn't happened in the first place." Mitchell pulled up a chair. "We did our job. Quiet, legal, measured. We didn't push. We didn't overstep. That's what people needed to see, especially now." Thompson nodded. "Still lost the target. We'll get her." They sat in silence for a moment. Not just colleagues now, not just agents. They were witnesses again to something that had become far too routine. Thompson finally asked, "You think Webb changes after this?" "I don't know," Mitchell said, "but I think he saw himself clearly for once. That's more than most ever get." They turned back to their screens. Later that week, Lisa Rodriguez's burner pinged again in Florence, South Carolina. Local agents took over the trail. A sting was rebuilt, quietly, carefully. Thompson and Mitchell weren't on that takedown, but their fingerprints were all over the setup. The files they'd collected, the footage Dana from the grocery store had saved, the license plate logs, the surveillance angles. They all played a role. When Lisa was finally arrested, she had 4 IDs, 3 burner phones, and a laptop full of fraudulent vendor applications. Her entire operation, disguised as a farm produce supplier, had been washing over $400,000 through fake EBT transactions. She never saw Thompson again, but he read the arrest report like it was unfinished business finally typed up. Webb, meanwhile, completed his disciplinary training and was reassigned to administrative duty for the time being. No suspension, no demotion, but a long conversation with the department psychologist and an obligation to finish 3 months of de-escalation coursework. Nobody called it justice, but it was something. The clip would fade, as they all do, another entry in a growing archive of incidents people knew were real but wished weren't so frequent. Still, something shifted. Not in the headlines, but in the aisles where people stop and look just a little longer, where silence feels like a statement, where a calm voice can cut through a badge's weight like paper. In the end, the real story wasn't about Lisa's escape or Webb's misstep. It was about a moment, a pause in the middle of a grocery store when judgment met professionalism and lost. It was about the power of restraint, the kind that doesn't come with flashing lights, but with knowing who you are, even when someone else doesn't. And that's a lesson worth remembering, because every aisle's a mirror, and sooner or later, we all have to look. If this story moved you, made you think, or reminded you of something that needs to change, these stories aren't fiction, they're lived, and the more we talk about them, the less likely we are to repeat them.